Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grid Talk podcast. As you can see, Wajid is slightly muted at the moment, just while we start the show, but we'll bring him in now. Hello, Wajid.
How are you doing, mate? How are you?
Not too bad. The end of the summer holidays is upon us for us parents, which is
just you. Well, just you in this group, in this podcast.
In this podcast. Well, as far as Wajid knows, anyway.
Well, that's a topic I'm not touching.
yeah, but we're not here for that kind of conversation. Sorry. Anyway, no. If anybody's watching who knows Wajid, it is 100% true. But he knows. Anyway.
Shut up and get on with it.
It's Italian Grand Prix review, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you always popping in. We've got an interesting review here today with the some teams getting it right and some teams getting it terribly, terribly wrong. So we'll be going over that in terms of what happened during the race, what happened in terms of this setup, what happened pre-weekend, of course, and just generally seeing how things are going for the teams out there at Monza. So the first thing we'll obviously flag up was that we ended up with new tarmac and new curbs at Monza. Wajid, do you feel that took something away from the event?
I mean, not particularly. I think qualifying was. I'm glad they've brought in the minimum time requirement for qualifying. Otherwise, we would have ended up with like the F3 scenario where everyone literally stopped on track and it became pathetic. So I'm glad they brought in the minimum time requirement. I don't really think it made that much of a difference to the overall racing. There was no rain, anything like that. The track had gripped up. The curbs weren't doing monumental amount of damage to the tires or anything like that. And yeah, we got on with it. I think what made a bigger difference to teams was every team has a regular braking system rather than an asymmetric braking system.
Yeah, that possibly did make an effect. Obviously, we cannot comment that it was definitely on anybody's car.
I'm not even referring to a team. I'm just saying everyone no longer has an asymmetric braking. We can confirm no one longer has an asymmetric braking system.
Yeah. We certainly looked into a few of the events which were happening, but obviously, first up, we have to talk about the Grand Prix as a whole. So the result will be scrolling along the bottom. If you don't want to know the result,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler. There we go. As you can see, it was Charles Leclerc that took the victory from Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz in fourth. And if you look at that, you kind of think, well, it's a bit of a surprise to see Leclerc up in the lead, but generally kind of where everybody's pace, apart from Max Verstappen, has been throughout the season. You know, we're not seeing anything surprising there, really. But, yeah, it was certainly not a simple Grand Prix.
No, it wasn't. The lack of Red Bull pace was mystifying. Like, they are in Monza, they were clearly the fourth quickest car.
This is one thing I've had a lot of in the last 24 hours of, where were Red Bull? Why were they so slow? Why were they not there? We do have to remember Monza is a very peculiar circuit. You know, we've had over the last few years, say Williams doing really well, who love a straight line piece. So that happens. But I just think, I don't know what, but maybe they went too radical with the rear wing as well, because you had that kind of, how do we describe it? A rabbit had chewed on the rear wing, or
I don't know.
It just doesn't look right. And if it doesn't look right, it doesn't work. I mean, think about the X-wings and the towers and the wings on the front noses at Monaco and all them things they've done over the years. If it doesn't look right, It's not going to work.
It's not, and but it is mystifying where the pace has gone though. Do you know, from Miami to where we are? I understand our development and stuff, but I've not seen a team so far ahead the previous year be caught by so many teams the following year. The Mercedes, the 2020 to 2021 Mercedes is a different kettle of fish because there was a bunch of regulation changes, which meant Red Bull caught up and the Mercedes got slower. Like the biggest thing being that they changed the angle of the height of the rake, which is also why the pink Mercedes, which is why the pink Mercedes became so slower. Red Bull's lack of pace, even if Mr. Magpie wants to talk about, you know, the rear wing having a bit cut out or stuff like that, to be 7/10 off pole in a lap that's what 1 minute, what was it, 1 minute 18?
1:19, 1:18, maybe
But that's
20.
All right, 1:18, 1:19 on a lap that's 75% on the throttle. That is scary.
Yeah.
And Zandvoort, they weren't quick either. And they've just got slower and slower and slower and slower. And we go to, is it Azerbaijan next week? Was it this week or next week?
Next week.
Go to Azerbaijan. That's a 2 kilometer straight. That.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I don't quite know what happened with Red Bull, but remember, I know it's not really the normal peculiar circuit. You know, when we've had big teams have issues, they've generally been at Singapore, where you got a night race on street circuits. You got the underground, the electric, almost bubble around that Grand Prix, which causes a few issues. It's overheat in Singapore, so you've always had a few things, but there's always a Grand Prix where, the top team goes missing, completely missing. Grip fuel, it's not my fault, just to be clear. But maybe this is the one, and at Singapore, Red Bull will be back at it. Who knows? But obviously, we've looked at other circuits which have huge amounts of fast corners or fast downforce, and it is McLaren predominantly the quickest. Ferrari, we've said since Silverstone, are 100% trying to build up to Monza, and they have, and they've done it, and now they'll probably think, well, I would say it's probably season over for Ferrari in terms of what they want to achieve, and they'll build up now to Lewis Hamilton joining them in 2025. But then if we, which obviously we'll get onto, if they do just drop off the pace, which it's a weird one with the Constructors' Championship. I've had this conversation quite a few times, and we'll get onto that again earlier on. That is an interesting conspiracy there by Grip Fuel. Perez is not far from Max. Max self-sabotaging to get out of contract. I don't think he'd self-sabotage to get out of contract. We've heard this rumour. It was mentioned for Zandvoort, wasn't it? That he backed off the pace, but he backed off because he knew he wasn't going to beat Lando and could protect the car, knowing that at some point, Max has already admitted it, there's an engine penalty down the road. But Constructors' Championship, is it really worth Ferrari going for it? Because at the end of the day, they've got less wind tunnel time with a 7 times world champion coming into the team who can go, hang on a minute, what about this? What about that? What about this?
Yeah, but Ferrari have not won a world title in any capacity since 2008.
Okay, so take the Constructors this year, or do you go for both next year with Lewis Hamilton?
Interesting. You probably go for both next year, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway. Some of that is fanboy as well.
Yeah, but
if you can, okay, but then to counter that, you take a potential guaranteed title this year to win nothing next year.
well, we can throw one thing at it. If Ferrari go on and win the Constructors' Championship this year, I would turn around and say it's possibly in competition with every other season, the slowest car to ever win the Constructors' Championship.
Ooh, interesting. And I wouldn't say.
Give me a minute.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Actually, that's a really fair point, and I would not disagree.
I'm just going to check who has won Constructors' Championship. Because on outright pace, we've said it before, Ferrari's got not a lot.
That's a really interesting point.
We've got Red Bull won it the last 2 years, and Mercedes obviously dominated. We know they were quick. 2013 to 2010, Braun won it. They were pretty quick at the start. 2008, 2007, Ferrari, 05, 06 champions. Ferrari all the way back into the 90s. The McLarens, 95 Benetton, 94 Williams. Even though, to be fair, that car was still pretty quick. It was just obviously had a big blurb. 91 McLaren, 90 McLaren. No, I'd still say it was in there. Wow. I'm going back through this thinking, maybe the 83 Ferrari with Tambay and René Arnoux. That was the year that the championship was won by Piquet. I'm just having a look. Piquet, Prost, Arnoux and Tambay were third and fourth in that championship. Yeah, you're possibly looking the worst car since Ferrari won it in 1983.
So Grateful here says Ferrari won't get close to the World Constructors title. They're not close enough, quote unquote, everywhere. By everywhere, I assume you mean every track. They don't have. I think Gripfield. My counterpoint is they don't have to be given the way the team in Papaya and the Bulls just don't want to. Just don't want to maximize Ferrari. All Ferrari have to do with Leclerc and Sainz is just maximize the opportunities because everyone else is tripping over each other. George Russell, bad weekend. Piastri wants to push the biggest title rival to Max Verstappen off the track. Checo's a B driver at this moment in time, to be perfectly honest. So they don't have to be close enough everywhere. They just have to maximize.
Yeah,
that's my counter opinion. That's my counterpoint to what you're saying.
I mean, in general, obviously, we'll move on to the opinion that we all were. I mean, a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, what about the tarmac? What about this?" But God, I didn't even click that, and it worked. Wow, that's amazing. One stop is all it takes. I was screaming at the TV over the weekend when they started going, "Oh, that might be a two-stop race." Why? Monza has never been a two-stop. Even I think back to 2009, and I think Barrichello may have won it, but I can't remember if he two-stopped. I think Jensen might have gone for a two-stop, and Barrichello did a one-stop, which is why Barrichello won it over everybody else. And Monza have never been a two-stop race unless there's a safety car. There's been no point in it. You lose too much time down the pit lane. What is it? 80 kilometers per hour. They're doing 250 plus on the main straight at the same time. It makes zero sense unless you get a safety car and you can bunch your pack up. McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull all seem pretty set on this from the word go. And I said it in the preview, you're looking at a one-stop race. The tyres do not degrade. And people have said, oh, what about the new tarmac? The new tarmac was not abrasive. It wasn't an abrasive tarmac. It It was a worry about heat because it's a darker tarmac, absorbs the heat a bit more, and obviously puts that into the tyres. But if you can control the heat deg that you've got on them cars, then you should be all right. The wear shouldn't be too much more. It just, obviously, McLaren's moaned about front left. Yeah, you're opening it up because you've got 2 Lesmos and you've got Parabolica. That's the only reason. And yes, I know it's Curva Alboreto, but sod that, it's Parabolica.
So I just went back and looked at the 2009 results. Both Brauns 1-stopped. It was Lewis in the McLaren that 2-stopped before he binned it in the second Lesmo.
That was in the last lap, yeah. It's just, it makes no sense in general terms to ever 2-stop unless you need to around Monza, because they had the deg, they had the graining effect, but graining always goes away. It's just how long it takes to go away. And what happened with Leclerc, because we saw Carlos struggle, and then he started coming slightly back into it. Like he dropped the time. He literally got the graining phase when the 2 McLarens caught him. That was the downside for Carlos. Or he might have been able to hold him off, and we might have been looking at a Ferrari 1-2.
I don't think he had that pace.
No, I don't think he did. But he was very clever in how he did it, and it just cost enough time for Leclerc to scamper away. Now, he won by
2.2 seconds?
So
2.6 seconds, sorry.
Piastri caught him by a second on the last lap. It made Lando caught him by another half a second extra on the last lap as well. It just made no sense to stop in my mind. And if you were going to stop, split your strats. We, like I say, it's been 1 stop at Monza for life. That's always been the way. And even when you've had to use 2 types of tyres, the medium and the hard don't have a huge... I mean, they do straight away because you've got brand new tyres, but they don't have a huge amount of deg and delta between the 2 throughout the stint as it gets on. So are we actually just saying Ferrari were the only top team to be switched on this weekend?
Seems like it, doesn't it?
Ferrari, you got it right.
I mean, genuinely seems like it because if I'm the Mercedes, if I'm not so that's but if I'm the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, even with the tire deg, Max got to what? I think Max at one point got to within half a second, but he did not have the pace to overtake him down the straight. So the Red Bull hasn't got the pace to keep you down the straight. Would you not just take the risk and think, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Well, ironically, Lewis, I mean, we don't know what his pace would have been on used tyres, but you lose about 25 seconds in the pit stop. He finished 22.8 off the lead.
Exactly.
Max, who were on brand new mediums for the last stint, so was Perez. That's the other thing that staggered me. That Red Bull started on hard tyres, got to lap 22, and then cancelled the whole idea. Now, for me, if you're going to start on hard tyres and lose that extra traction off the line, why aren't you trying 1-stop? It makes zero sense to start hards unless you're in a really close battle, which the Red Bulls weren't this weekend. If for somebody like K-Mag, I think it was, it worked. Or there's a couple of drivers down the field that started on the hards. That made sense because you've got the chance to get some clear space later on. Right now, for Max, it just made no sense. He had to make progress while the cars were all together. Because like you say, straight line speed, they're slowest of the speed traps for majority of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, when the race started, if the points had finished as they were, the gap would only be 50 points. As it is, I believe it's 62 points.
62.
And we'll get into papaya rules and the orange imbeciles.
Yes.
We'll get into the orange imbeciles. Don't worry about that. If you are Red Bull and you are Max Verstappen and you are seeing your championship lead dwindle, potentially just a massive slice, a massive chunk getting taken out of it.
Yeah.
Do you not do everything in your power to, like, whatever, one stop? Hell, if you could go no stop, go no stop. You do absolutely everything. And they're just, for Ferrari to be the most creative, the most imaginative team. Yes, it might be Monza. Yeah, Monza tax, Italy, home race. I get all that. But for us to see and say Ferrari were the most imaginative team on strategy, looked at the history of Monza and gone, it's a one stop that always works in Monza. Why don't we just follow through with the one stop and see what happens? Residing on the fact that worst case scenario, one of their cars was going to end up on the podium anyway. They've gone and won it in the end. Right? And everyone is now looking in the direction of the McLaren, sorry, going, what are you guys doing? And that just doesn't take away from a brilliant drive by Charles Leclerc, by the way. He did everything he had to do. He overtook Lando. When Piastri decided to shove him off the road. He was always within striking. Range. He was clear on the radio when Ferrari said, "What's the sketch?" He goes, "No, we're sticking to what we're doing." He was clear. He was concise. It's the first time I've seen Charles Leclerc take control the way Carlos Sainz takes control, and it benefited him. He's got his second win. He's got his second win at Monza. Ferrari was somehow the second quickest team this weekend. This up and down of which car performs which is just mental. But again, the Ferrari upgrades, I don't know why they brought upgrades at Monaco and then the only next big upgrade's been Monza, but whatever. Clearly they don't care about the Drivers' World title either. But the upgrade packages are working. And everyone has talked about, I'm going to go back to it, but everyone has talked about, oh, well, has Lewis made the wrong decision by jumping to Ferrari, blah, blah, blah. You have Fred Vasseur, you have Ferrari that seem to be in the right trajectory. Upgrade packages that consistently seem to work. And the Ferrari car seems to have a bigger window than the tiny window the Mercedes car works in. It still looks like a good decision to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Ferrari, it feels like since Miami and they knew McLaren were in the fight, have sort of cancelled their season and said, right, this is where we're going to aim at these Grand Prix. The next one, obviously, in Baku, but then we go to Singapore, which will pretty much be the Monaco spec. So they're already ready to go.
And where they won last year as well, and where they did with Carlos Sainz last year as well.
Carlos drove really well to defend last year. Probably Mercedes should have won it, but they didn't. It was Sainz who took it. What a drive by Charles Leclerc. Probably the best I've seen him since. I mean, look at the run he's on. I mean, the run he's on right now is, we were sitting there going, oh, what about
Oscar? Or about
what about Oscar? What about Lewis for the championship?
I mean, both on this podcast. Like, bear in mind, I've said the world driver's title is over, so this is all on you.
Yeah,
I asked you flat out, what about Charles Leclerc? And you said no,
because this car is not.
So I've got the points there running at the bottom.
Yeah.
If there is a fight for the world title, it is now a three-way fight for the world title.
No.
Yes, it is.
No, Charles Leclerc is still not in this title fight.
But Oscar Piastri is.
Yes.
Absolute nonsense.
And I'll tell you what. Let me just bring it up. I mean, the form that Charles is on right now, if I can just find it, there we go. He's currently on a top 4 streak of 4 races, 4th, 3rd, and 1st. Obviously taking pole in Belgium. And it's just that car over Austria and Britain went disappearing. And there's too many times this year where the pace of Ferrari has been good, but it's sort of been 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
Sorry, can you give me so his last 4 races have been what, sorry?
4th, 3rd, 3rd, 1st.
4th, 3rd, 3rd, 1st, right?
Yes.
Well, Piastri's has been 1st, 2nd, 4th, 2nd. That's not that much better.
No, it's not. And this is where that's what we'll get onto with McLaren. But I don't see the Ferrari having the outright pace. Look at his wins this year. Monaco, you can't really overtake. Seitz won in Australia, but Verstappen did blow his brakes. His brakes decided to spontaneously combust. And in terms of Charles, he hasn't just got to gain the 84 points to Max. He's also got to gain the about 30 points to Lando. So it's not like it's as easy as saying, here we go, this is a championship. And because Leclerc's 3rd, he's going to be, he's in this championship fight. He's not, because we go to Azerbaijan, the Ferrari could be nowhere. Singapore, we think it'll be there. USA, Ferrari haven't really gone well around USA that often.
Leclerc finished 3rd last year then before he got disqualified.
Mexico could be okay. Sao Paulo, Ferrari, hit or miss. Vegas, very, very quick. Qatar, they disappeared, I think, last year. And Abu Dhabi, we always say Abu Dhabi's a bit hit and miss because everyone's got to the end of the championship by then. So I don't see where I can go, right, here's 4 races where Ferrari are going to dominate and get themselves in the hunt.
But all the logic you just used for Charles Leclerc applies for Oscar Piastri. Yes, the car is quicker. I'm not going to. Yes, the car is quicker, but he's 106 points behind Max.
Agreed.
Is it 8? Is it 8 to go now?
But could you say, metaphorically, just let's get to Abu Dhabi, and we've got 8 races left. Could you see Oscar Piastri winning them 8 races?
Nope.
If the strategy is right and the races are right.
Nope.
Why? Who's going to beat him?
His teammate.
Yeah. Okay. So.
And Lewis, right? No one wants this conversation either. But Lando Norris has the same amount of wins as Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton this season. Oscar Piastri has less wins than Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc this season. McLaren have the same amount of wins as Mercedes and Ferrari and Ferrari this season.
I do understand all this. What I'm saying is, there's more chance of Oscar taking a clean sweep of 8 wins than Charles Leclerc taking a clean sweep.
There's more chance of me dating Camille Cabello this time next week than that happening.
Well, good luck to you with that. I mean, you're going away for 6 months, so
Yeah. Well, good luck to Oscar as well. But since we keep on ranting about them, papaya rules, just not for the win.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? I'm gonna ask a few questions here.
Yeah.
The first one is: was there anything wrong with the move that Oscar Piastri made? I say no. The actual move was aggressive.
The actual move. I have seen Max Verstappen make worse moves on people than what Oscar did.
Yeah, so that's fine. Before anybody jumps on that in the chat, and feel free to give your views as well, because we'll pop them up on the screen. Oscar was allowed and fair dues to take that move. Yes, it was risky with both cars. A lot of people have said to me, Constructors' Championship, that's all McLaren are looking at. Now, if McLaren were really looking at the Constructors' Championship, they wouldn't care who's ahead, and they would say, hold position on lap 1, let's get through it, let's pull away, then we fight for the win. So I think it's interesting to decide. I mean, what is your view? I mean, obviously, Papaya Rules comes across on the radio. What is your understanding of your thoughts on what Papaya Rules means?
Multi 21. That's exactly what it means.
You think it's whole station?
Yep.
Okay. Personally, I think it's you can fight, but you can't do what you did on lap 1. So basically, you can't put yourself, if you've got a clean overtake, you can take it, but do not put any car at risk.
The reason I disagree is because when going back to Spa with the Mercedes and Canada with the Mercedes specifically, when they have been said, you are free to fight, they openly say, you are free to fight. There's no multi 21. There's no Papaya Rules. There's no black and yellow. You know, black and silver. There's no Lewis to Ferrari. There's nothing like that. They're openly free. They're openly free to race. That is why I disagree with what you're saying.
Lando was told he could fight.
By who?
He got told. Will Joseph did come across the radio and say, you can fight Oscar, but Papaya Rules.
I think it was whole station.
So I mean, it could be one of these. Who was it who used to do it? You could fight. Oh, Mercedes. You could fight until like 3/4 race distance,
or
then
like,
your whole station.
Then your whole station.
Kind of. You know, it could be. We don't know what Papaya Rules means, but the last point I'm going to make, or question I'm going to throw at you, is obviously we've been very adamant, and people may say this is because we're a British podcast. I know I've been talking to a lot of Aussies this morning who have said Oscar Piastri was right within his rights to make that move, which we've already cleared up, absolutely. But do you think McLaren got it wrong that when they couldn't win the Grand Prix,
they didn't swap
Lando
places?
Wasn't ahead?
Yeah. You and I, whether we disagree on a world title fight or not, like this isn't the point. You and I both sat on this podcast last week, I believe for the review show last week, or the preview show. If you haven't, by the way, please go check them out. And I categorically said to you, and I raised the question, is it now time for teams to pick their first driver and pick their second driver? We said with Red Bull, it already happened. With the Mercedes, it wasn't going to happen because of Lewis leaving, and they really want to get into George. And, you know, my whole thing on George Russell is really looking good all of a sudden that this guy just can't drive on a Sunday. But, you know, as I self pat myself on the back, you have one man. And then we got to Ferrari, we got to McLaren. We said with Ferrari, it was fairly self-explanatory because Carlos Sainz is leaving. Both you and I said, why can McLaren just not back the driver that's the most informed and the closest to Max Verstappen? And it got so embarrassed. It got so people were ready to kick the crap out of McLaren so bad that Zach Brown has gone onto the stage with Sky Sports afterwards, and Nico Rosberg has essentially gone, "You're an idiot. You are stupid. Get your crap together." Like that. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing massively and being very blunt about it, but Nico Rosberg, in like a polite / sharp sort of way, has gone to Zach Brown, "Get your crap together."
I get a huge feeling now. Who's Oscar Piastri's manager?
Mr. Mark Webber.
I think who was stung very badly by teams in terms of team order, not backed whatsoever. I just wonder whether there's, I think Will Buxton said this. There's something in his contract for Piastri that says you will not ever be treated like a number 2 driver unless you are mathematically out of the title race.
Yes. But what Mark Webber fails to fails to hold into account to is the 2010 World Championship fight. When we got to South Korea, he was leading the World Championship, regardless of how he was treated. Blah blah blah. In 2010, in South Korea, which I believe was what with was that 3 or 4 races to go? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think it was 3.
Right.
I remember.
I will check. I will check after I go back to make my point. He was leading the world title. He decided to go on a bike. He decided to jump on a bike, break his rib or whatever else, and in South Korea, when he was leading the race, he binned it in the wall.
Yeah, I mean the
right?
way I
no. So and then Mark Webber wants to hold on to I was treated like a second driver, blah 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 blah. You had your chance to win the world title in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. You just weren't good enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was quite as simple as that in terms of what he's doing. I think he's just trying to protect Oscar's interests, which as his manager, he has to. But then, like I said to a lot of people, you have to look at it this way. McLaren, and we've seen, this is the weird thing about it. We've seen a lot of good faith from Piastri since he's been at McLaren. Last year, especially, a little bit at the start of this year in terms of, we need to win Grand Prix and let's get Lando up there. But it's almost like since Hungary and Piastri's won, they've gone, in the Piastri camp, they've sat there and they've said, right, we can win this World Championship, which is forgetting how many points you're behind it. And while I get 3 points here and there, they're probably going to say, well, it's 3 points, don't matter. It's about momentum. And this weekend is why I'm so critical about it, is it wasn't for the win, it was for second place in the end, because they screwed the strategy with 2-stop. I think Wajid just found out how many races it was.
It was 3 races to go.
It was 3 races, yeah. Because they had Abu Dhabi and Brazil.
Yeah, it was. They went Korea, then they went to Brazil, then they went to Abu Dhabi. And like I said, because I remember that vividly, Mark Webber had a 14-point lead. Mark Webber had a 14-point lead going into that race.
Well, just in general, I just think McLaren have, Oscar's crew have gone, we've now got the pace to win Grand Prix and dominate Grand Prix. Why don't we go and do it? Now, actually, in all sense of the imagination, if Lando finishes second and because I think there's a couple of thoughts at Monza. I was about to say if Lando finishes second to Piastri all the way through the season, I mean, I don't know what the points would be if Max was 6th all the way through, but you get what I'm saying, like. Yeah, absolutely. Lando could still probably win the title.
Yeah.
But this weekend, it wasn't for the win on the last lap. They weren't going to suddenly catch Charles Leclerc. And those 3 points just adds that little bit more pressure. Obviously, Lando took fastest lap on the final lap, which was the most sensible thing from him most of the day. And you're just looking at it as a situation that, yeah, okay, Piastri's got 3 extra points. It still leaves him 20 behind Leclerc. Never mind anybody else. And I know, jump on it, it's his second season and all that, but it may be his second season. But he's now in a championship, potentially championship winning car. He has to just turn it on and get on with the business. And yes, we could say Lando should have defended better on the first lap. He probably didn't expect it because it was teammates. You've got so many other things that could have been the way it happened. So, it's a difficult one. It's not
a difficult one.
No, it's a difficult one in terms of Piastri camp, because I can understand where they might be looking at it and going, well, we've got a chance as well. But at the end of the day, Piastri has been a very good team player until Hungary. And now he just seems to be the arrogance seems to have taken over. And he's got to remember, at the end of the day, McLaren saved his career. If he had gone to Alpine, he wouldn't have gone to Alpine. They re-signed Alonso. We know that. So what would... Sorry, no, they brought in Gasly and Ocon, didn't they?
Yeah,
It wasn't
Gasly
Gasly and Ocon.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, he didn't have a drive. They weren't going to put him on loan anywhere. He was going to end up another year as a test driver. And 2 years as test driver, you're pretty much out. Look at Schwartzman. Look at Fittipaldi.
Look at Drugovich.
Yeah. It's a situation where he would have been looking for drivers in WEC and maybe IndyCar. And Piastri's momentum would have gone. So it's, for me, it's your second season. Yes, you'd like to take the chance to win the title, but if you show good faith now and they go to the first round of the season, which is in Australia, so he's got, home Grand Prix, get a win, get momentum, then McLaren back you. Right now, Lando is in the Seb Vettel situation of the Red Bull former title battle. Going, if you're not going to help me, why the hell am I going to help you? And that'll just provide a load of bad blood in a McLaren camp, which seemed pretty on it in terms of a partnership. They were pretty much like, well, yeah, okay, Piastri can win races, and be there when he needs to. But, we've got a number one driver, and, the line, we haven't got a number one and a number two, we've got two number one drivers. No team has two number one drivers. I'm sorry, it doesn't. So, for me, and McLaren have admitted it now, they're going to have to look at it, because at Monza, we could have had two cars out of the race on lap one.
Yeah, they're going
to. That's the way they've got to look at it. There's better places that Piastri could have made that move. And that's the only thing I'd say. He put both cars at risk to try and win the Grand Prix. If he had won the Grand Prix, an extra 7 points to his championship, he's over 200 points, less than 100 behind Max then it's a different story. But at the end of the day, he made the decision to go two-stop. They asked him. They said to him, can you do the one-stopper? Would you like to try it? He said, no. So the blame kind of lies on his door there. Lando obviously was making mistakes and had nothing to lose by going for a two-star because he was so far ahead of the others. So, yeah, McLaren have to make a decision now or after Azerbaijan. I would prefer it now in terms of the championship, but I suppose if you go to Azerbaijan, Lando wins, gets another 7 points at least on Max. The gap's still coming down.
Azerbaijan's too late. Sorry to cut you off. Azerbaijan's too late. The decision has to be made now. We spoke candidly on this podcast, and we said, and it's funny because again it helps take us into the next topic. You and I ran through all the races remaining in the season, and neither one of us thought Red Bull were gonna have a race like they had in Monza.
Agreed.
And McLaren did not take advantage at all. In the constructors, okay, cool, you're 8 points behind.
Yeah.
No one cares about the constructors. Like, as fans, you don't care about the constructors. It's a nice little historical point, but no one cares about the constructors.
I mean, it throws some money that way, but also disadvantages you on the air. I mean, I look at it now, like, why are Aston Martin not pushing themselves to try and score more points? Because at the risk, which they're not going to, they're not going to risk it too much. They actually wouldn't mind if RB caught them. I mean, it's 40 points, but we wouldn't mind if RB caught them. Because if they are signing Adrian Newey, giving him as much time in the wind tunnel as possible would be lovely.
When Magpie rules in F1, skip quali and then crash team.
Okay, that's an iRacing dig. But yeah, so it's certainly one of them where you just go, it's just not. McLaren need to make it. I think 7 races to go. If they really don't want to put, because the problem is, if they now go, we're going to make the decision after Azerbaijan and tell Piastri that we're in a position to race at Azerbaijan, but if you're too far behind after Azerbaijan, there's no championship.
The decision should have been made after Zandvoort.
Oh yeah, it should have been, but it wasn't. I think it was. I know
it is clearly not. It is clearly not when you are not telling Oscar Piastri, listen, park it on the apex, after the first chicane.
Yeah.
Let Lando through. He needs the extra 3 points. You're not winning.
Now, I'm getting a feeling from, obviously, there's a bit of regret on how it's come across. I do think the decision has been made. I think McLaren are trying to back Lando Norris because if you notice, both times he got to pit first.
So why is Zach Brown sat there looking like an idiot?
Yeah.
When Nico Rosberg has a bunch of questions and he's just good. Duh.
Because in terms of Nico Rosberg, it's Nico Rosberg. He won a world championship and ran away because he knew he couldn't win it again.
I mean, people also forget if Lewis's engine doesn't blow up in Malaysia.
Exactly. But in terms of Zach Brown, he cannot in any way right now upset the Piastri camp. Because let's be honest, the future of McLaren would be holding on to Oscar Piastri. Lando has been in talks with other teams before. Oscar has not.
If you have a world title car, potential world title car, especially going into 2025, where you are one of the favorites, you should not care what Oscar Piastri does because you are in a position of strength.
I
McLaren,
agree.
Sorry. Let me just finish this now.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
McLaren are still thinking and are still acting like a bunch of losers.
They are still acting like the team that needs sponsors. Now, the amount of sponsors on that car now, it's not. They don't need the constructors' money. But I think they've also forgotten that if they let Lando go for World Championship and fight for World Championship, the Constructors' Championship will now come along with it anyway, because you'll be outscoring Max by over 60 points. The championship will come. Webber is Oscar's manager. Any hint of team orders and Marcus talking to other teams? Yeah, most likely the way. Probably the McLaren IndyCar team, because there's probably something in the contract about you've got to go do the Indy 500.
But where's he? Where is he going? It's the same. It's the same as Max going. Oh, I'm picking up my toys and leaving. Where are you going? You going to Sauber?
Well, you say that. If I was Red Bull and Christian Horner,
Red Bull are taking Oscar.
Bull
are not taking.
If you were thrown away, if Max is walking away, you need somebody quick and young who can take the pressure. You put Oscar Piastri in that car. Why not?
Max Verstappen is not walking away from Red Bull because there's no other team on the grid, no other top team on the grid, stupid enough to give him that much power.
I also will point out one thing, which when we get to let's move on.
Let's get there. Let's get there right now.
So with Max Verstappen, he has turned around and said, "Forget the title and the state the car is in." Now, I don't think I have ever seen a car be so dominant and disappear so quickly. Now, there's got to be, there's always been this rumor, but there has to be something removed from that car, hasn't there?
I mean, like I said, we can confirm that every single car on the grid doesn't run an asymmetric braking system. I mean, we can confirm it.
Yeah. Let's see, because a lot of things slip past the FIA recently. So we won't quite confirm that because we haven't looked at all great. But in terms of Max's results, Adrian knew he was removed. Yeah. I mean, I've said it's got to be something to do with the development of that car. And like Lee has also just said, Grip Fuel, his day-to-day influence is underestimated. I think that's a very, very big point. Because you design a car, you need the person who designed it to tell you which direction to go.
But Red Bull, hang on, the Red Bull development team wanted to make it a point that, well, he's been working on the Valkyrie project. He's been nowhere near the F1 car. We have a great technical officer, and who's the other branch they have? I believe it's the development officer. But
yeah,
look at the work these guys are doing. Adrian has been less hands-on than you guys think. oh, you could leave, etc. This is all down to Red. This is all down to Red Bull. Red Bull, I have never seen in my recent memory. I cannot remember a title-winning team being so dysfunctional at the top in recent memory.
'2018, 2008, no, 2007. I know what I meant. Alonso and Hamilton. Yeah.
But they weren't. But the drivers were dysfunctional.
Well, no, the whole team was because they were stealing
Yeah,
ideas.
but that wasn't because of Martin Whitmarsh, and so they didn't tell him steal the data, did they?
Well,
They
no,
took
but there was some kind of power struggle in that as well because Ron didn't leave. Ron left soon after, didn't he? And Martin took over.
Yeah, but okay, but what I mean is the upper McLaren structure. You know, like the actual McLaren brand, not just the car.
Yeah,
because obviously McLaren have like the construction, all that. The McLaren organization, the McLaren group weren't getting involved with the McLaren team, were they?
No.
That's my point. You've got the Red Bull family owners on one side and the sub owners on another side. That's my point.
Yeah, I get you. And I think a lot of it with Red Bull is you've had a very stable ship since 2005. You know, Adrian came in, Christian came in, Helmut was there, etc., etc. You know, I mean, we've all worked in jobs for years and years, and at some point there is a manager or a colleague which grates on you and you stick with it, and then in the end it just grates that little bit too hard. And I think that's the situation we're in. You know, maybe Red Bull did not appreciate Adrian Newey enough, and that's why he walked away. It's why he walked away at McLaren.
Okay,
it's why he walked away at Williams.
But as man, because I've been you know, blessed in my career to be in senior positions where I've had employees work for me, etc., etc. I'm sure I'm very great. I'm very grateful for that. But
sorry, very highbrow.
Keep looking because my bank balance is higher.
It's true.
But in any structure, in any organization, any structure, anything like that, the employee, a la Max Verstappen, and an extension of the employee, a la Jos Verstappen, have never been given more power. I've never had more say in the running of a team than I do, as the management and as a senior member of management. And this is where I want to get to a certain old-time racist Austrian, Dr. Helmut Marko. You cannot have, if Helmut Marko is the head of race development, you cannot allow Helmut Marko to go out and say what he wants and undermine what Christian Horner, who is the boss of the team, does.
Well, we could also throw out there, I mean, I'll say one thing. Like, he's come out and obviously said a lot of stuff. He's also come out and said, I laugh while I say this, that the McLaren and the Mercedes front wings need to be checked. How many times has that Red Bull wing flexed?
I don't know.
But anyway, that one comes in. I've got to say this. Do you think, let's speed this along a little bit. Do you think that Max Verstappen is realistically, I mean, you say we haven't got a title race. Has your opinion changed at all? Not because of McLaren, but because of Red Bull's form.
No, because his lead is too big. He was given a 6 race advantage before everyone showed up. And unfortunately, I have to now add McLaren into this. that car's been the quickest car for about 9 races, and they're not taking advantage the way they should. Lando Norris, I should currently have mud on my face for saying this world title fight is over, and Lando Norris should be 30, 40 points ahead at this moment in time, and he's not.
Yeah, very true. And we'll find out soon enough about it. Another thing that come up with the Grand Prix, and we will while we're on the Red Bull subject. Well done, Sergio. Not too far off the back. I mean, how far were you off Max in the end? You weren't far off in qualifying, and you ended up about 15 seconds behind Max in the end, roughly, give or take. I mean, it's not great,
He finished behind George Russell, who had a wing.
Yes, but at the end of the day,
Oh, God,
didn't Sergio have a slow stop as well, I think? Anyway,
okay.
But at the grand scheme of things, I mean, if you look at his fastest lap, it's 9/10 off George Russell's. So they will just, for whatever reason, there was some issue. So coming home,
sorry, mate. For context, Alex Albon was closer to Checo than Checo was.
Yeah, I get that. I will also point out that this is the first time I think. Hang on, let me just find out.
He's finished on the lead lap.
Somehow, don't ask me how this is. The race have ranked Max Verstappen 4th in the race.
Of course.
Apparently, he had a better race than Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz. The race. Are you watching the same race as me? I mean, they put Kevin Magnussen 18th. Because apparently it was a mixed bag. He scored a point. He had a very strong drive, which actually we're about to get onto now. So, for those who don't know, Formula One do have a system of 12 penalty points and you're out for a race. K-Mag has triggered this weekend. I think it's harsh. I think it's, especially considering the incident that has made that race ban happen. I think it's a very harsh thing by Magnussen. He made a move into turn 4. There's slight contact with Gasly. Both missed the corners. Both got back on the track. No penalty. And then he picks up a 10-second penalty when Daniel Ricciardo picked up, I think it was a 5-second penalty at one point, or there's a couple of other drivers who picked up 5-second penalties, and it wasn't even a where it was a full-on collision. Whereas this Gasly touch has given him a race ban. Just to clear up, his penalty points account started with 3 for the collision in Jeddah with Alex Albon. We all agreed that was worth it. He picked up 1 for a collision with Tsunoda in Shanghai, which I can't even remember. So
I can't remember.
3 in the Miami sprint race. Yes, we know about that one. That was a definite. He had the slowing point. He did the slowing tactics in Jeddah to help out teammate Hulkenberg. Picked up another 2 at Miami for punting Logan Sargent out the race, which, again, I think that was about 50-50 on the 2 of them, really.
But no, I blame Sargent for that, because Sargent kept his nose into a corner where you don't overtake, and Magnussen was from what I remember, Magnussen was the driver ahead.
Yeah, so it was 12 points overall. That brings up the race ban. I think it's very harsh. What's your opinion on this?
You just called me as I'm eating chocolate. It is harsh because I'm with you. I don't remember the Gasly incident.
I can only turn around and say in Jeddah he was really strong with his defence, and the Albon incident we do say was not a great one, but then he had for penalties anyway. So, and you get given, the penalty points was to stop bad driving. I could not say at any time that K-Mag has done bad driving.
The only time I can say is Miami.
Yeah.
Miami, he totally crossed the line.
He lost the plot there.
Yeah, in the sprint race, he totally crossed the line.
Yeah, exactly.
The race he got taken out, which I'm still shocked he got the 2.
So that was where he got all his points from. He now has to miss a race, and then technically, considering K-Mag hasn't got a drive for next season, and we don't think he's in for the Sauber drive with Audi, could be his last 7 Grand Prix of his career, and you've got 12 points remaining because it gets cleared. Yeah, that opens the door a little bit for some fun. I mean, come on, he tried people say we need overtaking F1. He tries an overtake, it doesn't quite go right, and you give him 2 points and a 10-second penalty.
But again, this is where it gets stupid, because if we're going to talk about quote unquote bad driving, I'm going to bring him up again. Unfortunately, Max Verstappen is a shocking overtaker. Max Verstappen has driven people off the road.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen has committed like F1 terror in some cases, and he's had less pushback than K-Mag.
Yeah.
So I think it's very hard. Miami, cool, fine. If you were gonna like really reprimand him, I totally get it. But I think it's totally harsh.
Well, Gasly's actually turned around and said, I hope they revert it. I don't want him banned because it makes no sense. So now you're turning around and saying we don't want aggressive drivers on the grid. And then we'll get onto something which I'm going to make afterwards. But it looks like Ollie Behrman will probably get an early debut for Haas, I'm guessing. Even though F2 are in Azerbaijan, so he's not in the title chase, so you can't do double duty.
Double duty?
No, you can't do double duty. The only other person you could put that they've got contracted would be Pietro Fittipaldi.
I don't want to fit a Paldi in the car. He's not good enough.
Well, Pietro isn't going to be in the car because he is confirmed to be in Nashville for the IndyCar finale, so that won't be happening. So you're looking at Ollie Behrman, or could you be looking at Schwartzman? Because if Schwartzman doesn't have a drive now, he's just finished his WEC season, which was over in. Actually, is there one more race for WEC? There might be one more race for WEC, but they've just won actually over in America in terms of the WEC race. Yeah, we've got Fuji and Bahrain to go. Has he got a clash with them? Let me just have a look at the calendar. 15th of September is Fuji. So that would clash, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because they're in Azerbaijan now. 6 hours of Fuji.
So at the end of the day, who is now... Let me just have a look. They're now 9th in the championship on 51 points. It's a long shot to get to the title because they missed a couple of races in Brazil and France. So it'd be a very long shot, but they did take victory. Robert Kubica and Yifei in the car with the Israeli licensed Schwartzman, not the Russian. So they managed to take that victory. Do we see them? No, I think it's got to be Behrman, hasn't it?
It's got to be there. It's got to be Behrman.
Right now, F2. Let me just check on the standings. Behrman, after his win in Monza, is now 50 points, 14th in the championship. He's not going to be in there to affect things. He's not really going to be helping Antonelli get in the fight either. So unless he went on some stupid run of race results, he's not going to win the title. He's got an F1 drive. You may as well go get warmed up. And Baku is the track where he took F2 pole with bent steering on his debut. So he's quite handy around there.
Let's keep this space open and see what happens. Hopefully the FIA can't reverse their decision. Probably won't because they're a bunch of arrogant idiots.
Next up, we'll do predictions next. So for predictions, as you know, we're not very good at this. So qualifying, Lando Norris on pole, Piastri, Russell, Leclerc. Sainz was the real life top 5. Let's have a look at predictions. Wajid Sights 5th. You can have a point. Leclerc, no. Piastri 2nd. You can have a point. And Norris on pole. You've got 3 points, Mr. Wajid.
Let's go with Mr. Magpie. So you had Lance Stroll in 5th.
Who didn't make it out Q1?
You had Alex Albon in 4th.
Yeah, you got 9th.
You had Max Verstappen in 3rd.
Yeah.
You had Lando Norris 2nd. And you had Charles Leclerc 1st. So great predictions there. Lance Stroll in 5th. In the 8th fastest car.
Well, to be fair, he didn't do too badly in practice. Where was he in practice? Okay, his first practice he was 15th, then he was 10th, then in final practice 16th. Okay, well maybe I just watched practice too.
Let's get to it. So what? That's currently 3
points to you. Yeah.
Let's get to the race.
No, it's 3-0.
What? As in?
I haven't even got a point. Race prediction. So
I had Sainz in 5th. I had Verstappen 4th. I had Piastri 3rd. Norris 2nd. Leclerc 1st. So I get 1.
So you get a point. Yeah, I had. Obviously, result was Hamilton Sights 4th, Norris 3rd, Piastri 2nd, Leclerc 1st.
You had Albon in 5th.
Yeah.
You had Hamilton in 4th. You had Sainz in 3rd. You had Norris 2nd, and you had Charles Leclerc 1st.
Well, one thing I was right about is not to have Verstappen anywhere near the top 5.
That's true. One thing you were totally wrong about is having Alex Albon 5th.
Yeah, but to be fair, the Williams wasn't as quick as I expected, to be fair.
So that's a nice sweep for me this week, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. We will also mention, obviously, Williams back in the top 9 in the end. He was 10th.
Yeah, he was
10th across the line, 9th after the penalty.
9th after the penalty.
K-Mag. Yeah. K-Mag, a great drive to 10th as well. But Franco Colapinto took over the drive of Logan Sargent. Bit of a surprise to some people. First Argentine in Formula One since Gaston Mazzacane in the Prost back in early 2001. He also did a season for Minardi. Did a one-stopper, something the top teams couldn't do. And made a nice overtake. I think it was on Daniel Ricciardo at one point that was on the TV. And I think it's hard to judge. We expect the Williams to be pretty good round here. We've seen it with De Vries before. Sargent did okay last year around here. So I think it's a little bit hard to judge, but a very solid weekend.
It's a solid weekend, but there's been a history of a Williams driver jumping in Monza and having a solid weekend. Let's see I'm with you. Let's see what happens at Azerbaijan. That'll be the real test. But to finish, I think just under 20 seconds behind your teammate. It's a solid drive.
Solid drive. He had pace. He'd made some overtakes. He made a couple of mistakes, but didn't put it in the wall. And I think just overall, I don't know if you saw many of his interviews, but he just seemed to have that confidence. All right, don't push it, Lee. Colapinto did have a certain air about him when he was doing the interviews. That he was like, I'm in control of this. I'll do what I think I can. And let's get to the end of the season and see what happens.
He does, but he was driving in Monza. Let's see what happens in Azerbaijan. I just want to see what happens. I will have a much stronger opinion after Azerbaijan.
Yeah. One other topic, though, we will get on. Go on.
Because even Dave with his helmet there in the background, he could jump in the car at Monza and probably stick it in the points as well.
Well, Colapinto didn't quite do that. But anyway, I also haven't got... I'm sorry, James Vowles, you will not fool us by saying you had 1 million phone calls from South American companies wanting to jump on the car just because you had Colapinto in it. No, they came with Colapinto. We're not stupid.
Did you not know he had Lionel Messi for him?
Oh, just too much. Anyway, final piece. Mercedes rebuild 2026. It's coming now. We'll mention it. Kimi Antonelli jumped in the car for free practice 1. He was
confirmed straight. He was confirmed straight after.
Yeah, let me just check. First practice, he was slowest. Only did 5 laps, so 23.9 at the time. Did put him. I think he was about 4th when he crashed. we've seen the PR machine in chaos here at Mercedes. I'm going to throw my part out here first because I want to rant about this.
Go for it.
Mercedes decided that they were, and I fully understand why they tried to do this, but it didn't work. They were going for some low fuel, fast runs with Kimi Antonelli. I'm sorry, they weren't evaluating flaws, not with the fuel load they had on. They guarantee went for a glory run with Kimi, so they could turn around and say, here we go, here's our new driver, and he is damn quick. And then he threw it in the wall. We've had the PR machine coming out going, look at his data. He was 14 kilometers an hour quicker through Ascari, and he was this through. Yes, but he binned it, and he overheated his tires because he was 14 kilometers an hour quicker in apexes than people who knew what a Pirelli tire could take. And let's be honest, he threw it in the wall. Please, anybody watching, I don't doubt his speed. I don't doubt he has speed. But this season's F2 season has been messy, not consistent. Yes, in the wet, he was very quick in Silverstone. But let's throw this out here. If he's
he won in Hungary as well, didn't he?
Yeah. But in terms of a sprint race, I think it was in Silverstone, everybody was saying, oh, look, he's so much quicker. Yeah, because if he's going through corners that much quicker, he's generating more tyre heat while keeping the tyres cold. So he will have more grip in the rain. So maybe that's why he is that quick in the rain, because he generates too much tyre heat into the tyres. During his F2 races this year, he has been very strong at the start and then sort of disappeared a little bit, apart from Hungary, obviously, and Silverstone. This weekend, I think I counted about 5 times in the F2 races he was off the road in some kind of capacity. Ollie Behrman had a damaged front wing and was still keeping up with Kimi Antonelli. They had a massive fight between themselves, almost pushing Antonelli almost pushing Behrman off the track. This isn't going to work between Kimi and George Russell next season, is it?
But it's though, because George Russell's the future of Mercedes. George Russell's the future of Mercedes, isn't he? Like, look at him qualify. Look at the PR that the Mercedes tweet out anytime George has binned it or puts it on pole. That's the future, right?
Great. Yeah, I mean, we're saying Kimi is. Yeah, look, I'm not saying he's not the next world champion or whatever, but let's throw this out there. So go on.
He's not.
Let's throw this out there. Like, he's done this season, and in the there we go. He did free practice 1, crashed, didn't get announced, qualified in his qualifying. He qualified 6th, which put him on the grid for race 1. That put him 15th. I think there's penalties involved with that. Obviously, for grid 2, that put him 6th. Yeah, so the penalty went on to race grid 1. In the sprint race, started 15th, finished 18th because of the incident on the first lap, meaning he ended up putting super soft tyres on and just cruised into the end of the race at the back. And then in race 2, started 6th, finished. Where did he finish? Did he finish? Where's he gone? I've lost him. He finished 4th in the end, at the front of the queue with Joshua Dirksen, Victor Martins, and Ollie Behrman. And Villa Gomez was on the back of that queue as well, which shows you something if a Van Amersfoort car is hanging on to the back of you. It's, it's been scrappy by Kimi. And this whole weekend, he's had the sprint race. He qualified 6th, so free practice 1 hasn't affected him as such. He's managed to get in the car. Then he's gone to race 1. He's got involved in an incident on race 1, avoidance on lap 1. Race 2, which is on the Sunday, he's been announced as this big Mercedes arrival. well, the first race didn't go to plan. Hopefully, he's calmed himself down for a feature race, and he's been off the track about 3 or 4 times. There's too much pressure on the lad.
I just think he just needed another season F2. I understand they have the Max Verstappen fear of we lost out on Max Verstappen to Red Bull because we didn't guarantee him, etc., etc., etc. You could have stuck just a stopgap in the car for the 2025 season. The regulations are getting changed in 2026. Bring him in, have him as your test driver for 2025. Like, and if you really want in the car, put him in the car 2026. I just think, as quick as the kid is, he didn't need to be fast tracked the way he did with the seat being open. I wish him all the best. I really, really do. But this kid has more hype around him than Oscar Piastri did when Oscar Piastri jumped in the papaya. Piastri's season, for all the hype, was okay. Was okay. For the hype Kimi Antonelli's coming to win, Antonelli needs to win a race next year.
Yeah, let me just throw out, obviously, we've had a lot of things happening this year. Antonelli is coming in. Behrman's coming into Haas. Have we got any other rookies coming? Jack Doohan coming in as well at Alpine. And we may have a rookie in Vissalba because McLaren, this is a weird story, McLaren backed Gabriel Bortoletto, who won the F3 season last year at pretty much a canter. It wasn't dominant, but it was pretty much, sealed before the final round. Won from the back of the grid this weekend. Yes, very lucky with a safety car, but when you're at the back and you're quick, you normally go hard tyre and then try and run it as long as you can. They risked the soft tyre. He got himself into about 16th place from the back of the grid, and then is the only driver ever to win from last on the grid in an F2 race, and he won it comfortably by 10 seconds after the safety car. So he's well and truly the star of the show in F2 right now, and looks like he could be in competition with Valtteri Bottas for that Sauber seat. I think it's worth a go. I think Bortoletto can bring a bit more than Bottas, but I understand why they go.
Can I ask a question just before we move on quickly? George Russell, the conversations need to start being had about his son, about his Sunday pace relative to Lewis in terms of if you can be a team leader.
I think they do, and
because that's sorry. Yeah, because that's a pretty bad mistake going into turn 1.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely something about George that needs answering. I think next season answers it completely, because now you're not going to have the data of a 7 times world champion to look at and work things out. Now, I'm not saying George can't lead the team. I don't think he will be able to, but can George get in there and lead it? We'll see. He managed to help Williams push forward, even though from Williams he didn't really have much further to go back. And obviously we continue to see that Williams progression with Alex Albon, who's been very good technically, as we've heard. So let's see. But I think there's going to be a severe problem for Mercedes if Antonelli turns out to be quick but erratic, because he will want to beat George. We know how much George already focuses on his teammate. And we've already seen Antonelli be able to lob it up the wall, and George under pressure lob it up the wall. I think, I know one of the Mercedes mechanics who was kind of chief mechanic for Mercedes, for George Russell this weekend. I saw him at the front of the car. I kind of think they're going to have a lot of rebuilding to do next season. And I don't mean rebuilding as a team because Lewis has left. I mean physically rebuilding cars.
So, quickly before we finish off, and I'll let you finish. If that car is a world title car next year, with those 2 drivers, can you see either one of them winning the world title?
No, because I mean, it depends how much we're looking at. If we're looking at a Mercedes, which is where McLaren are now, no.
Yeah, that's the measurement stick. I don't think they'll develop a car like the 2020 Dark Destroyer. I don't think it'll be anything like that.
I think the only downside on it for Mercedes is the situation. Maybe because Lewis has left, we get back the F2 George Russell, who gets to the front and dominates. We know he can do it. He did it in Brazil. We've seen it before with George through F2. If we get that George Russell back, great. If Antonelli comes out and out-qualifies him in Australia, we won't see that George Russell. And that's my issue. I think if George grabs this team, by the scruff of the neck and goes, "You're still my team," and Antonelli is the new boy in here, but with all the PR from, all that PR from Mercedes this weekend, I can't see that really happening.
Fair. Thank you very much. I just want.
That's absolutely fine. So, for those who don't know, obviously, here are the championship scores right now. So, Max Verstappen 303, Lando 241, Charles Leclerc 217 is the Invitational race. We'll have to see. Oscar Piastri 197, Carlos Sainz 164, Lewis Hamilton 1. Was that Lewis and?
Sugar. Whoops.
Sugar. Sorry, Carlos is 184. So it's just
sorry, that was it. Yeah,
mispress. Lewis 164, Sergio 143, George 128, Fernando 50. Then you got a nice battle for 10th place between Lance Stroll, Hulkenberg and Tsunoda 24, 22, 22. It says a lot for Lance Stroll, I suppose. Daniel Ricciardo on 12 points, Pierre Gasly on 8. Kevin Magnussen now equals Ollie Behrman on 6, which is ironic because Behrman will probably be taking Kevin Magnussen's seat in Baku. Alex Albon on 6 as well. Esteban Ocon on 5. And then we still have our people still to score, which is the non-driver of Logan Sargent, his replacement, Colapinto, and then Guan Yu Zhou and Valtteri Bottas, which I'm just going to jump on. We said that if Pinto finished in certain positions, he would pass certain drivers in the championship. I can tell you now, drum roll please, that Colapinto is 21st in a 20-driver championship, ahead of Valtteri Bottas. And yet Bottas is the driver who might be keeping his drive, which I can understand because Joe Guan Yu's been absolutely nowhere recently and he was nowhere this weekend. But Bottas is 22nd in a 20-car championship. So anybody who wants to throw out Nick de Vries, that's a new one.
And quickly, before we go, the constructors' points. Red Bull 446, McLaren in second 438. Should have been level, but whatever. Ferrari 407, then a big gap to the Mercs with 292. Aston Martin in fifth with 74. RB, MasterCard, American Express, PayPal, Zoopla in sixth on 34. Haas on 28. Alpine 13. Williams 6, and Sauber yet to score.
Well, Audi are certainly going to have a bit of wind tunnel time in the next couple of seasons. We can say that much.
Say that for now.
I have just realised as well, and through all this podcast, I forgot to do that. Anyway, a little bit too late for it, but anyway, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Wajid, for joining us yet again.
Thank you, always, my friend.
Thank you to everybody who has joined us on the stream. If you haven't already, please like on Twitch. There it is. It's that side. It's not even there. So,
and then YouTube that side.
And then YouTube on Wajid's side. Please subscribe to that. We are certainly getting the views, but not the subscribers. So if you would mind, subscribe it. It's completely free. It's a subscription on Twitch that costs you stuff. But also on Twitch. While I remember, if you do want to support the podcast and the iRacing and everything like that, it is September. So if you are a new sub, it is cheaper. So you could do that if you really want to. I'm not going to push you into anything, but if you don't, I know where you live. No, only kidding. There
may not be a show on Thursday just because commitments and all that, and we don't know what filler we'll fill in. If not, we will be back next week for the preview show for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and then back a couple of days later for the review show. But we will be discussing off stream just in case we can fit in another. We'd like to fit in another video. It's just time constraints and everything like that.
Yeah.
But no, as always, thank you very much, everyone, for your time, getting involved, and please do like, subscribe, and all that. It really does help the growth of the channel and the algorithms and everything like that. And just want to get that content out there, as we try, and try this time next year we'll be on the Abu Dhabi grid.
And as always, we may as well try and see if there is a raid available. I don't think we've got many people to raid with, but if you would mind hanging around for the raid, that would be appreciated if you're on Twitch. So let's just send it out to let's just send it to Emil, shall we, just for the fun of it. It's only a couple of people, but we'll send it out to Emil. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and we will see you very, very shortly for the, as we said, Azerbaijan Baku podcast. And if you are on Twitch, we're going to send you over to Emil, and we can have a bit of fun with Emil Burnstuff, who used to be a GP2 racer. So, and he once beat Ocon at Monza. He won't let you forget that one. But we'll see you very, very shortly. But for now, goodbye, Twitchers. There we go. There goes the Twitchers. And goodbye, everybody else.
Peace.